The Bulldogs.
A lot of dogs.
It'd be funny if like they had a postseason tournament where they're like, since we have so many Bulldog names, like we need to narrow it down to one. So whoever wins gets to keep their name. You'd see the best basketball of your life. There's going to be some crazy shit. People are going to bet Eastern Washington, they lose by 10. And people are going to be like, oh my God, this team sucks. Or like Montana State blows a game and people are like, what the, the Big Sky's trash.
I feel like I just can't take you seriously. And at the same
program.
time, yeah, it's like I simultaneously can't take you seriously and I'm extremely interested in everything that you have to say.
That's good. That's what we need out of this stream. Okay, is that like inertia or something? There's like a.
Well, I mean, like moving water requires colder energy to freeze. I can go call my mom. My mom literally lives on a river in Wisconsin.
What do we call that? Boots on
ground. Yeah. Okay, so you've got your mom's house on the under, and you've got life savings on UNLV. What else? What else can we wager? Future Kids College Fund. Oh, but yeah. Well, so we're gonna double up, right? So we're gonna parlay the house and the life savings, and then we're gonna roll that through on something.
Told you we always been ready. I don't need people that's petty, that weigh on me heavy while I'm being steady. I need a record with Felly. We get it bouncing like Betty's. I feel like I'm Nelly. Don't bring the beef like a deli. It's leaving I levy. No sleeping on me like I'm Freddy. Chris Breeze, how I do. Hit him with the moves. Left hand step back, ballin' like I'm Coos. All faith, God's plan, you just gotta choose. God slaps, nothing left to prove. Y'all gotta leave me alone. Lately I've been in my zone. Told them no cap like I fitted, but lately the flows have been straight off the dome. I feel like I'm MVP, like my name Patty Mahomes. If it ain't about money, don't hit on my phone, cause lately I've been in my zone.
Hello, welcome to the Cowboy Show, hosted by Ben Carey and Nick Gronerad, combining expert human opinions with cutting-edge simulation models to help you arrive at the best picks each week. Inside Edge Community. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Another day to bet on some college basketball. Sounds like a good day to me. Chat, how we doing? How'd the bets do last night? I was but the guests we're bringing on, she did pretty good. But chat, I need to know how you guys did. I know B German, the Discord, was on fire. I think he hit every bet. I think B German might be in here. Scrunch says it sounds like a good day to drink. I feel like you probably feel that way every day, right? But that's okay. Well, I'm not here to judge. I am not here to judge. Brad had a good day. So we got 4 games today. Nick is feeling under the weather. I think he went too hard in Vegas. So he's not going to be joining. But I decided to bring on a first-time guest. And it's someone who kills it in college basketball. Ivetta, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. You had a pretty good day yesterday.
I did. Thank you, Ben. Thank you for having me on. I'm really happy to be here. I'm a big fan of all the really great work you guys do over at Capwise, and looking forward to discussing this awesome Sweet 16 Friday slate. Yesterday was insane. I mean, those night games, especially. Well, first we had the Michigan State Kansas State game was nuts, right? And just when you think you can't top that, how are we going to top that? Then we have FAU, just FAU Tennessee. I mean, and then the Gonzaga UCLA game, which is always just a phenomenal game. I can't remember the last time it wasn't a phenomenal game. So I did well. I went 4-0 yesterday. I barely hit the UCLA Gonzaga over. I think I covered that by a hook.
It was looking so good too, and then it definitely slowed down in the second half.
Yes, because it looked like it was going over the whole first half, and then all of a sudden I look at the score and I was like, oh my God, I'm like sweating this out here. Mm-hmm. And then just Yeah, I think it was 146 might have been the final score, and I think I got 145 and a half. So, yes, but it was, what a night, man. What a night.
Yeah, it's been a really good tournament. I know we ran into each other in Vegas and we got to hang out and watch some of the games. But no, I think overall it's been a great tournament. I mean, anytime you have a 16 seed beating a one, regardless of what else happens, it like that makes the tournament. That was just so crazy to see in person or at a sports book, not in person. Sometimes I feel like I'm at the game when I'm at the sports book, but that was fun to see. Before we dive on into some of these games, why don't you tell our audience just a little bit about yourself, kind of how you got into betting, maybe betting and then college basketball, or if that was the first sport you started with, and just yeah, just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so is actually the first sport I started with, and I really, like, truly fell in love with college basketball in college, just going to so I went to FSU for undergrads, just going to every single home game, and just getting that ACC experience. That's when the ACC was, a lot better than it was this year.
Yeah.
So, just being there in person, just I don't know, it just, like, lit a fire inside me, and then I started going to more games. I started traveling around the country during, college basketball season and visiting some of these, historical venues, going to these big, matchups. Um,
Cameron, you been to Cameron?
I have not been to Cameron yet, so
Oh, darn.
that's,
Bucket list. That's got to be on
yeah,
the bucket list.
yeah, so that's on the list, and, so it's been one of those things where, I started betting. You know how it's kinda like the gateway, you start doing pools and brackets and, the
Yep.
gateway to full-blown sports betting. So I started doing some, college basketball, some NCAA tournament brackets and then pools, and then eventually got into betting from there. So that was it is college basketball is my passion. That's my gateway sport basically. And then
Hmm.
it kind of trickled out through there. But my day job, I'm a professor actually. So nothing to do with sports betting besides the, like, on the, like, data side of thing, just the analytical side of things.
Hmm.
But
Well,
other
yeah,
than
because
that,
you do meteorology, right?
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, we were talking in Vegas and Evan, your other friend.
Mhm.
I mean, there's a lot there to unpack with weather, but yeah, we might have to have you on during baseball season to talk some of that because there's a lot that goes on with the weather and sports and the lines, of course, as you know.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of overlap with, like I was talking to Brett about the overlap with the financial sector, and we had a great conversation about that and forecasting, financial markets and then weather forecasting, so there's a lot of, it's really interesting, all those predictive metrics and
Hmm.
how they kind of cross pollinate across these different fields. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Obviously, college basketball not affected by the weather really, but you know what's funny? UTEP, I think they had a game where like the heaters went out or something. Did you
Yeah.
do I was like, "Man, how do I handicap this?" But I was like, "I'm gonna stay away," because I felt like if I tried too hard, I would be on the complete wrong side. It was unprecedented, so I was like, staying away. But
And
yeah.
we have you're right, we have a small sample size because we have those Air Force,
Oh, yeah.
the aircraft carrier game.
Yeah.
We have, like, a few of those every year when
Unders, right?
yeah,
Just play the
so those
under.
are the only true weather impact games are the aircraft carrier games, so it's funny.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Yeah, when they play those games, it's such like a sucker bet because 'cause you're like, "I'm gonna play the under," but they usually hit because it's harder to shoot if there's any sort of breeze, right?
Right, and they're
Yeah.
not used to that. They're not like they're not conditioned for that like football players or any other outdoor sport, and then you've got that whole condensation on the court thing, and they're sliding around, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's just wild.
Yeah. Well, no weather in these games, I don't think, but we have some good ones. I'm looking forward to some of these matchups. Definitely some games where it seems like a lot of the public is on one side versus the other, but we'll definitely dive into some of those uh, here today. Last thing I want to ask you is how's the bracket? Is it holding up?
So I haven't looked at it in probably since Vegas. I haven't looked at it. I had UCLA winning it all, and I honestly stand by that. I love the fact that I took that because I think our pools got somewhere around 100 people or something because
Hmm.
I only did the one and then I did a survivor pool, and they looked so good. I mean, if they were healthy, they would have. I fully vouch that they could have ran the table. Um, if they didn't have the Bona injury, and then of
Hmm.
course Jalen. I mean, it was heartbreaking to
Yeah,
watch.
because you
So
know that if they were healthy, I mean, there was a really good shot. And I had UCLA going all the way too. If they were healthy, there was a really good shot that they were going to at least make the Final Four, and they probably win that game against Gonzaga.
right. Yeah, 100%. And I think that not that many people picked them. So I think, from a game theory standpoint,
Hmm.
I think that was an advantage because a lot of people had either Houston or Alabama or, a small
There's
percentage
some Texases in there, like a lot of people
Texas.
have Texas. Yeah,
Mhm.
because I was like last place near the last place in one of mine with 20, but I did the math. If UCLA would win it all, I would win. So that was kind of my strategy with that. Like same with you.
Right.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the games though. Let's dive on into it. So we're gonna pull up Unabated. Shout out Unabated for sponsoring the stream. I'm gonna stick their logo right there. Boom. And Ivetta, you use Unabated too a little bit, right?
I do. Yes.
Yeah.
I do. I use it a lot for college basketball and baseball as well,
Mm,
MLB.
yeah. No, it's great for college basketball, especially on those Saturdays when there's literally 120 games
Yeah.
and you can just go and I like the way you can search by different fields, like the hold percentages and things like that. First game though, Alabama, San Diego State. This is in Madison Square Garden. I brought up the trend yesterday about unders, and we had one game go under, one game flew over yesterday, and of course that was Kansas State and Michigan State. Those teams just got back on track with their perimeter shooting. But I'm showing a spread basically at -7. I guess there's a 7.5 at BetMGM, and then the total around 137.5. So I'll just start off with you. And as we go through these games, just let us know if you actually have a bet on these or, if it's just a lean because totally fine either way or not. I'm not going to have bets on all these games, but curious where your head's at with this first game today.
So this is actually the game that I have dug into the most, just because all the other ones, when I first saw them, I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do, except for the Miami Houston game, which
Mm-hmm.
we'll talk about. But uh, so first and foremost, I actually have probably a lot more dogs than a lot of people for this Friday slate. And I really I don't know, but there's that stat that Action Labs put out since 2005 prior to yesterday because I haven't
Yeah.
factored in yesterday's games. Dogs were 110, 87, and 7 ATS in the Sweet 16 and Elite 8. So that's about 54%. So that makes these two rounds the only profitable rounds for dogs in that time period since
Wow,
2005.
that's interesting.
Yeah, so if you look at the first and second rounds, yes, you have your big dogs that your big upsets and stuff, but it's not consistent enough to actually develop any sort of pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to use that to justify well this first play, and I did bet San Diego State plus 7.5. So this was a tough game to evaluate, and I know a lot of people are on San Diego State, but I try to look at it objectively. So you
Mm-hmm.
have two contrasting styles of play. San Diego State has the sixth overall defense, and they've actually played better defense as of late. They're in the top 35 in 3-point defense in their last 3 games. And Alabama, they like to shoot threes. I think there's something like 4th in 3-point attempts for the year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the deciding factor here is going to be San Diego's offense. Can they actually score enough to hang with Bama? And Bama can cover this number despite Miller not being 100% off that
Mhm.
groin injury. He looked great. What he dropped 22 on Auburn or what? I
Yeah,
don't.
he had well, it was funny because in that first game he had 0, right? In that
Right.
Texas A&M Corpus Christi. And then the second game, let me see if I can pull it up.
Or yeah, I'm thinking of Sasser. I think I'm thinking of
Oh, you're
Sasser
thinking of Sasser.
on Auburn. But Brandon Miller has looked progressively, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but yeah, I mean I think 19, maybe he had 19 points just off the top of my head. So
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now just to see what he had
yeah,
last
please,
game.
yeah, confirm that.
He had 19. So yeah,
Okay.
it's so funny because he had 0 in that spot, and there was like this book that was running a promotion where it was like over 0.5 points in the bet hits, and of course he had 0, which I thought was hilarious. But yeah, 19 last game. I wanted to point out one thing you said real quick. I really like the angle with the 3-point shooting and the
Mhm.
defense because in Madison Square Garden, obviously the totals have been lower over time. I think they're hitting at like 47.5%, and then, sorry, 57.5%. And then the first half under is almost at 60%. And I think one of the reasons is just a little bit of the backdrop. It has that dark, the really dark background. And I think it just kind of screws up players' sight lines. So this is a spot where I just don't think Alabama's just going to come and shoot the 3-ball well.
Yeah. No, and again, we have to find an edge somewhere, right? Because these lines are so tight at this point in the season
That's why I
that
brought you on. I'm like, these are getting, I mean, it's like splitting hairs and you're trying to find even like 0.5, even a point of value at this point.
yeah, it is 100% like splitting hairs, and and you're absolutely right. Everybody's looked at everything at this point. All the obviously we want to go by the quantitative, by the stats and the metrics. Those are at the end of the day, those are going to be the most important factors. But one of the things I like to do, like what you just mentioned about the dark backdrop, is I like to look at the qualitative data as well. I like to dig in. I'm a big fan of going to the team's message boards and snooping
Yeah.
around, the night before the game because it gives you a really good idea of, not just injury reports and things like that, and updates, but kind of like what the mindset of the team is.
Mhm.
uh what's being said in the locker room, what's the buzz around campus, so 100%, because I think at this point in the season, uh those the qualitative data can definitely give you a little bit of an edge.
Mhm. No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, at this point, it's like anything and everything I can find.
Hmm.
I'm gonna try to sort it out. So, anything on the total here? I'm leaning under, and I'm also on board with San Diego State. I think that's going to be my lean in this one. It's at 7.5 at one book, but it's 7s across the board. But you still like it at 7?
I still like it at 7. I wouldn't play it below 7.
Mm-hmm.
I think 7's a good number. I got it at 7.5, but uh, yeah, I again in this tournament, I mean, the way that things have gone so far, especially, I I think that's just a little too many points. And I mean, we could go into the kind of get into the weeds and talk about their opponents that they faced and all this stuff. And honestly, neither have played great competition as of late.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of hard to see, kind of hard to see where they're at conditioning wise now. So, but again, that's splitting hairs.
Yeah, for sure.
There, there's a reason that these are single elimination games and not this isn't a 7 series. It's all it takes is one game. And I think for this one game, I think San Diego State can keep it close.
Yeah, and from a stylistic matchup, it is going to be interesting. Not only to see how the two teams kind of play each other with their different styles, but also, I mean, you have the Mountain West team that came out of that, that conference, and there was all that talk about the Mountain West, and you have a proven Alabama team who battle tested throughout the SEC. So it will be really interesting. But I think San Diego State can hang. I really do. I don't know if they have a chance to win, but I definitely think they can cover the 7. So and we did a poll too, and it looks like we had a majority of the people on San Diego State. So chat is aligned with us.
Okay. And I nothing on the total in this game to answer that question. I've looked at it, but I again, it kind of depends on I just don't trust San Diego's offense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard for me to tell which way I would lean, which way I would
Yeah.
lean there. I mean, obviously, just those 2 defenses alone, I mean, if I had to pick, I would probably lean under,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, no, didn't take anything.
Yeah, and also it's really interesting. Circa just moved to 6.5 as we speak, and
Wow.
it's always fun having unabated up when we're talking about these games, and you can just see things kind of move in real time.
Mhm.
So if you can still snag a 7.5, that might be a good look if you have access to that. But let's move forward, just because we do have a few more games to go to, and tip off will be in about 30 minutes. Let's talk about Miami and Houston. And chat, I'm going to put up a poll with both sides and both totals. So just give me your best bet. I'm showing 7.5. Houston, the favorite, of course, and then total anywhere from like 139.5 to there's even like a 141 on the board at Bookmaker. What are your thoughts on this one? And I'm sure this is a Miami team, just you being out in Florida, that you've watched, right?
Yes, and, it is because so as an FSU alum, we beat them down in Miami, and that was their their worst loss of the season. I believe, they lost to us and then Georgia Tech, and, so this is a really interesting. So, right now, I am only on the over in this game. I have to even check
Mm-hmm.
because I track my bets in Action, and Action was down earlier, but I did tweet it. So I think I have the over 138, if I remember
Mm-hmm.
correctly. Uh, just because, so this is really interesting. I have to confirm. It's
Mm-hmm.
sorry, it's so sad.
No, it's all good.
I have yes, over 138 is what I locked it in at. And I'm also I know the public's very heavy on Miami, and the sharps are very heavy the other way on Houston. And I kind of like Miami, to be honest, as a side. So I like the total. It's a hairy total, to be honest, just because of Houston's defense.
Mm-hmm.
Miami's defense is what, like, I think they're like top 100 in defense or something like
Yeah,
that.
I'll pull that up right now. Also,
Yeah.
real quick, sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to make a correction on my end. The first game we were talking about is actually in Louisville at the Yum Center. So that's my bad. I don't know why I thought it was at Madison Square Garden, but I just wanted to make that's 100% on me. So chat, thank you for pointing that out. So yeah, the first game's at KFC Center in Louisville, and the second game, let's see here. It's hard to find out where these locations are. I want to say it's someone in chat can help me out. But anyways, you continue, and then I'll let you know when someone tells me.
Yeah, so they obviously Omir looked really good in the last game. The only thing, and Miami doesn't foul, or they don't foul, they don't get into a lot of foul trouble, but that's really what I'm concerned with is if he fouls out,
Mm-hmm.
then they're gonna have a hard time. I think the game can get away from them. But Miami's guards are, I mean, if they're on, Houston's gonna attack the rim. So Miami, they're gonna hinder some of Miami's shooting. I mean, that's for certain.
Mm-hmm.
Miami hasn't really, this is not like an Indiana team. So I think the guards are not going to get as many open looks for sure. But I think if Omir can stay out of foul trouble, and if I think Poplar, so he had that tailbone injury.
Mhm.
He practiced yesterday, and all indications point to him playing today. Now, I doubt he's going to be at 100% today. So I think if he I think he's going to be a big factor in this game.
Mhm.
Him and Wong, obviously, but yeah, I mean, I think that again, it's more of just a numbers play for me. I mean, so is it still at 7.5? Let me look at my
Yeah, I'm showing 7.5 still pretty much across the board. So yeah, 7.5 is what I'm showing.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, it's a numbers play, kinda just like the San Diego State game. I think that Miami definitely has the horses to keep up with Houston. So I haven't taken it yet. I just have that over 138, but I am leaning Miami. I'm worried about Houston's defense. They have the highest block percentage in all of, college basketball, almost
Mhm.
17%. Uh, and then the I don't know. It's we'll just see how, how it I think if Miami starts out hot, Houston's second half might be a good play.
Mhm.
But I'm gonna be watching Norchad Omir and his foul count pretty closely in this game.
Yeah, you know what's funny about Miami is throughout the whole season, it seems like the market just never gave them the respect that maybe they deserved, and that's pretty indicative of their ATS record. I know it was one of the best in college basketball, and it seems like the market just never quite got there with them. But now, this isn't the best matchup for them, so I understand why the line is over 7. But would you have any sort of reasoning as to maybe why the market didn't give Miami their respect? Like, what would be your guess there?
Yeah, because they play in the ACC. I mean, the ACC was just so uh and it's when you're the best team coming out of the ACC, which in this case they were, and the ACC is down, we're just conditioned to think that, okay, well, Duke and UNC, I mean, NC State had a decent season, Pitt had a decent season, but we're just conditioned to think that, okay, if Duke and UNC are having, Duke started playing well towards the latter part of the season. But so I think that it was just, they just didn't get, you're absolutely right. They just didn't get that respect because the strength of the ACC as a whole was down. But if you look at the numbers, I mean, they can easily, they can hang with pretty much, any team. They put up a lot of points. They looked phenomenal. Kind of,
Yeah, like the numbers are there.
right.
Maybe it's the the ACC bias, which is kind of weird, right? Like you usually never have to bring that up because usually the ACC does get all the respect in the world. But yeah, this year it's kind of been weird, right?
Yeah, and then the last thing I want to add about that is coaching. So I think that, and not to take anything away from Samson, he's a phenomenal coach, but I think I I think Larry's gonna really Larry Naga's gonna, I don't know. I feel like he's really good at making in-game adjustments.
Hmm.
And I think that if it comes down to it, he could at least keep them in the game, you
Yeah,
know?
without it kind of getting out of control. Like he's gonna keep it manageable.
Right, without letting it get out of control. Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's gonna be an interesting coaching battle as well. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm very this is probably the game that I'm the most excited about from just a watching
Yeah.
standpoint.
Yeah. And also I just wanted to shout out the chat real quick. Slate Talk, appreciate you guys subscribing and they rated us. Ivetta, basically that's it. Like if they have their stream, they can just bring their whole party over to ours. So they dropped a rate on us. So appreciate you guys hopping in. Curious what all you guys are on in the chat and what the guys like that Slate Talk Trying to think if there's anything I really like in this one. I don't really think so. I think this is that one game where, look, I lean Miami, but it almost feels like another Arkansas UConn game where I was leaning Arkansas with the points or even to win. And then it just was, I mean, it was pretty much over about like 15 or 10, 15 minutes in. So something is telling me personally just to stay off of this one. Alrighty, let's hop on into the next game. I'm really curious what you have to say about this one. I'm going to start the poll. So chat, make sure to vote. Give me your best bet in the poll. But this is Princeton Creighton. And this Princeton team, I mean, I don't think most people had them going this far. If you did, I want to see your bracket. Princeton was a team that I watched, I think, like 3 to 4 times throughout the course of the year, and they didn't impress me, right? They definitely didn't have anything on tape that was like, oh, this is a team that could make a run, but they definitely did. I mean, here they are against the Creighton team who, when healthy, looks great. I mean, they looked great in the Maui. Then Cockbrenner had the injury, or I guess it was mono. He was out, but he's back. They look great. Spreads at 10, total at 141. What do you like in this one?
So again, I'm going back to my dog's angle for today, and it could be way off. I could have some regression looming for after yesterday, but so I mean the Tigers are so they are 201st in 3-point percentage. They're 199th in free throw percentage. They're 258th in offensive blocks. So they're not it's not a good matchup on paper for Creighton. A Creighton team that has really gotten it together towards the end of the season. I actually have the over on I have a Cockbrenner prop over
Nice.
over 15 and a half points. And I mean, Princeton is decent defensively, but Creighton is as well. So that's the they kind of play cleanly. They don't force a lot of turnovers. So it's one of those things where I agree with you. They did not impress me at all and I watched the Ivy conference tournament and
fun conference. It was a fun conference.
And they were
Yale
great.
And
Penn,
Penn, yeah, and even Brown was pretty good. They had not Colgate, Cornell was a really good offensive team. So yeah, there was talent. It's just funny, like if you were to ask me, oh, who's that team going to be out of the Ivy? Princeton was probably my third guess.
So the only reason I picked Princeton to win their conference tourney is admittedly because the game was at Princeton, because I felt like they were so evenly matched. It can literally go either way that I just gave them the extra couple points for home court. So, so I'm with you. I don't think Princeton's going to win this game. I mean, I felt a lot better about FAU beating Tennessee just because of the style, there's Tennessee's style of play, but this is 10 points. This is 10 points in the Sweet 16. Yeah. So
that's hard by, any team, whether it's Creighton, Houston, you name it. Like 10 points it's a lot.
Exactly. This is 10 points. And if even for the, the best of the best, I mean, I just remember that Bama South Carolina game that went to overtime. South Carolina almost beat Bama outright. It was right after that, Brandon Miller news broke. But yeah, so unfortunately, I think Princeton's run is going to come to an end, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they can at least keep it within 10 points.
So this one, what's funny is like after that Arizona game, they shot 4 of 25. And in my head, I'm like, to beat Arizona, like if you would have told me that they shot 4 of 25 against Arizona, not only would I said, they're not going to win, of course, but I probably would have guessed they wouldn't have covered. But they did both of those. They won the game by 4. And then they turn it around against Missouri and they shoot a little better. 12 of 33. But their 3-point defense has been good, or at least teams weren't hitting threes on them. Will be really interesting to see if Creighton can knock down some of those shots, because they allowed 3 of 16 and then 6 of 22. Just looking again at the odds here. Yeah, still minus 10 across the board. There's a minus 9.5. I actually played this small just for a little bit of sweat. I got in at 9.5 on Creighton. I was hoping it was going to get up to 11. And I was thinking about middling, even though that's like a kind of a lame middle. But the more I thought about this game, I'm worried, because 10 is a lot of points. And Creighton, they can do it offensively, but Princeton has shown that they can win and keep games close even when they don't shoot well. So it's going to be really interesting to see if they can continue kind of that style of play, and if they cover this one.
Yeah, and that is again, I think 9.5 is the logical play here, but I mean, if you look at all the numbers, that's the right play based on. They're also due for some regression as well, because again, like you said about the Arizona game, it's kind of like there's been the luck factor for them has been has been there. So they're due for some regression in that regard as well. So, but I just think they have, just being in the position that they are, I think they have the heart to not let their foot off the gas. And that's why I'm taking the 10 points here.
Yeah, no, I like it. I mean, it's gonna be really interesting to see if Princeton can continue, the success they've had, because I don't know anyone who had them going to the Sweet 16, and if you did, props to you. Yeah, let's hop on into the next game. Actually, last thing I wanted to say is the chat voted pretty heavily on Creighton. So they like Creighton a lot. But sometimes that can be a good thing for you or a bad thing, right? Like sometimes their chat, I mean, they're hot, they're on top of it. Other times I'm like, I'm okay with fading chat, but they like Creighton. So we'll see what happens. All right, let's hop on into the last game of the night. This is a really fun one. I told a lot of people both these teams were going to make a run. And luckily, Xavier, they got out of that first round game against Kennesaw State. That was a really fun one. Kennesaw State probably wins that like 8 out of 10 times, but they just didn't have enough down the stretch. I'm showing a spread here of 4 pretty much across the board, favoring Texas, of course. Pinnacle does have a minus 4.5, but it's plus 100. So that might be almost equivalent to a minus 4, minus 110. And then the total at 148.5, which I've seen a lot of people on the over in this one. But I'm curious your thoughts. Do you have Texas winning this one, covering, or do you think Xavier can pull some magic?
So I lean over here. I don't have a position on the over yet, but I may take it maybe
Mm-hmm.
before tip off. Since this is this is the last game, right?
Yeah, last one.
Yeah, so I might take I do lean that direction. So I might add that, and that Miami plus 7.5, my other lean that I haven't taken yet. But so I do lean over here. I like Texas. I took Texas at minus 4. I think Texas I think Texas is going to get it done here. And I was really high on this Xavier team at the beginning of the season. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I went to one of their games. I went to the Xavier Marquette game at Cintas, which was a phenomenal game. Just came down to the wire. But then once they lost Fremantle, they just haven't looked like the same team. And I think they're going to stay in this game. I mean, I don't think they're just going to, bow out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really worried about their defense. That's
Yes.
the weakest unit in this particular game. So I'm worried about their defense. I think if their offense gets going, they can, I think they can keep up with Texas. I think it's going to be a very fast paced game, but I think Texas is going to going to get it done. I feel like Texas has kind of flown under the radar. Because like you said, Xavier is lucky to be in this spot. They should have lost to Kennesaw State, and nobody's been really talking about Texas. You know, and I think that's how Texas likes it. I think they're kind of
Mm-hmm.
using that as fuel, especially when there is a potential Texas Houston
Mm.
championship game, you know,
Looming,
potentially
yeah.
on the horizon in
Yeah.
Houston. So
Would
yeah,
they face each other in that?
yeah,
Oh, so it'd be
yeah,
the
I think
final
so.
four.
I think
Wow.
so. Can maybe the
I'm gonna
chat can confirm
I'm gonna
that or
confirm right now.
yeah, but
I always like how the committee they set these little subplots up, and then we
right.
have to find them, like UCLA Gonzaga. Like when that was on the 17th year anniversary, I'm like, this was not a coincidence. They wanted those teams to play on that date.
Right. And going back to kind of the whole story, like the plot and like the storyline aspect of it, it kind of reminds me and Houston is a phenomenal team. They're very well balanced. They're well coached. They have a lot of weapons. I am not downplaying them whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of reminds me of the UNC Duke situation from last year, you know, because it's like, you know, Duke went through all these theatrics on their home court, and then UNC came in and you know, uh, what they scored 90 on them or whatever it
Yeah,
was.
they couldn't miss. I remember that.
Yeah, so a slightly different scenario, but it kind of reminds me of that with Houston having the Final Four in Houston, Texas being kind of like an in-state rival type. You know, it does make for a good story, but yeah, I do think, and also them playing in the Big 12, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and just
A lot of
facing
quad one games, you know, a lot of tough games.
so much great competition. And look at the teams they beat. I mean, didn't they, and again, I don't even remember off top of my head now, but didn't they blow out Didn't they beat Kansas by like
Yeah,
20 or
let me pull it up. I mean, there were so many games where I'm like, oh wow, Texas won again, because after Chris Beard was gone, I thought they would just kind of slide, but they really only had, I think, one game where they looked iffy, and it was against Rice. It was like the first game. They almost
something?
lost, but then other than that, I mean, there was a bad Kansas State loss, I guess, but they didn't really have like a bad loss on the resume. Like they had a pretty solid. And anytime you go through the Big 12, it's like if you can go 12-6 in conference, like that's really impressive.
Right, in that conference, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think Xavier has a chance. Uh, I think if that line, you know, if it moves a couple more points, then you know that it might be wise to maybe play Xavier. But their backcourt is really going to have to. They're going to have to give it their all. I mean, Boom,
Hmm.
Jones, Kunkel. I mean, they're gonna have to be on fire to be able to outscore them. And they can be. You know, we've seen that from the Xavier team, but we've also seen a Xavier team that has come out completely flat. You know, so it just I love Sean Miller.
Hmm.
I think you know, I'd love to see him do well. I think he's done such a great job with this program, uh, but yeah, I mean, I think Texas, it's just enough points for me where they're going to get it done. And I agree with you on the over. Haven't taken anything yet, but still have a couple hours to
Yeah.
put that in.
This is what I'm thinking. And sometimes it's kind of a cop out, right? Where you're like, I'll just wait for a better number. But Xavier is so streaky at times. If Texas does get up and I can grab maybe like a 146, I'll probably do that. I know it's only 2 points, but that may be the number I'm kind of looking for. And also Texas on Bookmaker, obviously one of the sharper books, market makers for college basketball. They have -4, 117, which it's 7 cents, but that's pretty significant, I would say. So that's something to think about too. I wouldn't be surprised if this gets back up to 4.5, but I guess it opened at 4, touched 4.5 a few times, but it went back down to 4. Yeah, we'll have to see. But I think 4, if you can get a 4 minus 110, I think that's a pretty good look. And also the poll, just a few votes. They like Texas. I will say this though. Kind of feels like both teams in this game don't have like the most pressure or nerves. I mean, of course it's the Sweet 16, but Xavier, like with the injury to Fremantle, I feel like they had that tough test against Kennesaw. Maybe that was like that game where they kind of squeaked by, and now they're just like, all right. And Texas, I mean, without their head coach, like no one really gave them a shot. Like once that happened, I know people had futures on Texas, and they're just like, oh, I'm done for, right? And here we are. I think they have the third best odds. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. It could be one of those really high scoring games, but we'll see if the defense steps up. But yeah, Xavier, I think has to probably score a lot to win this one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if their defense was, if they could at least limit Texas some, then yeah, because they can go on runs. We've seen that from them. Uh, they've been really good for the most part. Outside of a few exceptions, of staying in games. So, and it could be there could be some free throws at the end of the game or something that could, sway, 4 points. It could go one way or the other. But I mean, I just this is probably my most confident pick, because as soon as I saw this line, I immediately went to Texas. But then again, who knows? We'll see. Yeah, so I feel the best about that, and then everything else is kind of
Yeah. we'll see. No, I feel you. I mean, look, it's the Sweet 16. It's hard. We have 4 games to talk about, and I appreciate the transparency, because yeah, the last thing I want is like anyone to come on here to feel like they have to bet these games or have to find a spot. But hopefully you guys on the games we didn't have anything official, just talking about these, maybe you can see something. And yeah, the line moves have been pretty interesting. Alabama down to 6 in some spots. It's pretty crazy, because when we started they were 7.5. I guess it's still 6.5 at bookmaker, but yeah, there's been some moves. This happens quite a bit just right before some of the games. And also Poplar for
Miami. Yeah.
Miami. It looks like he is at least warming up.
Oh, good.
So he should probably be good to go, which is good news for you.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Once I actually pull the trigger on that. But I've got a quick question for you, Ben, if you don't mind, as I'm looking at this unabated odds board here. So this was kind of a topic of hot debate last night once the lines came out. Who do you like in the UConn Gonzaga game? So the lines, it looks like it's at 2.5. I see a 1.5 here. But 2 or 2.5 across. It looks like mainly 2s. But so after the Gonzaga game last night, and then after watching UConn play, because that was the only game that had a commanding lead. They won that handedly,
easily. Yeah.
So what do you like in that game?
Yeah. So watching the last 2 minutes of that game, I had this thought, and if Gonzaga just hits their free throws and then maybe UCLA misses a 3, they could win that game by 10. I'm not saying that them winning by 10 completely changes what this line is at today, but part of me also feels like people were watching that game, of course, and they almost saw Gonzaga collapse. I mean, they had to hit a deep 3 to win the game. I kind of wonder if that is factored in at all. If like people are like, wow, Gonzaga is lucky to be here, and we have a Connecticut team that just steamrolled a really good SEC team, right? It's hard to say, but at 2, I mean, I kind of lean Gonzaga, even at 2.5. Another thing to consider too is Vegas, somewhere you go a lot, and I'm there too. Like, I think they call it like Kennel South, and there's so many Gonzaga fans that go to Vegas. It's still a decent flight from Spokane, but there are a lot of Gonzaga alums on the West Coast. I was talking to a few people and they think that this crowd's going to be like 70% Gonzaga fans. Is that enough to like give you any sort of home court cooking, home court advantage? I mean, that's up for people to debate, but I think Gonzaga is again in like a spot where it seems like they don't have any pressure, right? It seems
Mhm.
like they're just kind of playing free. Timmy's doing his thing. Like Timmy's looked really good. Can he continue that against UConn in their front court? I don't know. I don't have anything in this game yet, but those are just kind of my initial thoughts.
Yeah, it does seem like they're playing with house money.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
whereas it does feel like UConn, feel like maybe they have more to prove.
Yeah.
Uh, although I watched that Adama Sanogo interview in the locker room yesterday, and he, I mean, he straight up said that they didn't think that they would be at this point, when they had that slump during the
Mm-hmm.
regular season. So so maybe they are as well, maybe they feel that finally all the stars are aligning for UConn as well. Now I do think it's Mark Few versus Dan Hurley, and it's like it's it's interesting from I don't know, it's from a coaching perspective, from because they've both had tournament issues in the past,
Mm-hmm.
not like Rick Barnes issues, but
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Like Gonzaga's whole thing is like they can never win it all, right? They've gotten
right.
to the final twice, final four, I think 3 times, but they never got it done.
Right, and then I think Timmy's got a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, he does.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting like you said, and you're absolutely right about the home court advantage in Vegas. And what's weird is you have teams that are closer, like Arizona usually has a decent showing because I go I go to a lot of those preseason tournaments that they have in Vegas,
Mm-hmm.
and they usually have either UCLA, Arizona, Gonzaga, one of these West Coast teams playing in them. And I'm always just blown away by how few UCLA fans are there. I mean, it's like a
Yeah,
4-hour drive or whatever it is from Vegas, and they just don't travel well. So,
it's weird.
um, yeah, so that's and well, thank you for sharing that because I've been kind of going back and forth because I think UConn's been on a roll, but I do agree. I think Gonzaga kind of wants it more, so we'll see which one actually prevails.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know someone may be thinking like, oh, one team wants it more than the other, but I mean, when you break it down, like Timmy, he is on a mission, like you said. I mean, Mark Few's been here so many times. I just give the edge to Gonzaga a little bit, but the thing that scares me is like, what if Timmy does have trouble against Sonogo and he can't score? That definitely scares me. So, I mean, at -2 for Connecticut, I see why people think that that's an easy number for them to bet Connecticut at, but I'm going to think a little bit more about that one. But that's my initial thoughts. We got about 3 minutes until the first game, so let's just recap real quick. I guess overall, what is your best bet for these 4 games today?
I'm gonna have to go with Texas. Texas -4.
I like it. I like it. You know, I would love to see Xavier pull it off, but Texas is playing so damn good. I never thought they would be playing this good without Rick
Mhm.
Barnes, or not Rick Barnes. Sorry, Chris Beard.
Chris
I'm
Beard, yeah.
well. It's funny. Rick Barnes too did coach them, but I was like, I know there's a reason why I said that, but yeah, it's look. Props to Texas for keeping the ship a sail, and I mean they're 2 games away from the Final Four. My best bet. Oh, what is my best bet? Well, it was probably going to be. I mean, it's moved now. I was thinking that 7.5 for San Diego State because that's down to 6.5. Man, I want to get there with the over in Texas Xavier. It seems so easy, right?
Mhm.
it seems like that one's gonna fly over. And then I'm like, oh man, if it's that easy, maybe I need to think about it a little more. Yeah,
Sometimes it's easy because it's, like it's the thing. It kind of the thing about the public too, right? You have people that are just like, well, I can't take this play because it's a public bet. Well, the
yeah.
public is right a good portion of the time.
That's what we tell people. We're like, it's okay to align with the public. It's not, if it was like the public loses 95% of the time, then I'd be
Right.
like, I don't want to be on that. But it's close to 50-50.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a really good point. I'm glad you understand it. I try to preach that to people and they're like, oh, Ben, you're on this play. The public's on it. And I'm like, okay, and if it hits, I don't hear a lot from them, but if it doesn't hit, it's like, see,
Of
the
course.
public was on them. And I'm like, oh,
Right. Yeah, and there was a number that came out. There was a stat of Fade the Public of I don't have it in front of me, but of what the percentage is at. And I think Fade the Public has been doing fairly well in this tournament from what I remember. I think it was profitable. But then again, I mean, like you said, it's not 95%. So you're still gonna have a
yeah.
lot of games that go in the public's favor. So I try not to ever let that affect my decision.
Good. I think it's good to think that way because it can really sway you one way or another. I guess there was one play that I liked that I didn't even talk about, and I think you could still get it in. I like the under first half in Alabama, San Diego State. I think the shooting is going to start off a little slow. I think Alabama's really going to have to feel out how San Diego State plays defense, and hopefully we don't have a foul fest to start things off. But I think the under 64 is a good look. I know it's low. People are probably a little scared to trust me after I gave out the under in the Kansas State game because that flew over. But that was such an outlier. Like that was a weird game, but it was fun. It was a fun game.
I like that. I like that first half under. I'm locking it in with you.
Okay. Perfect. Just looking at these other first half lines. I'm not the biggest side better for first half unless there's like something that really makes sense from like a trend perspective, but sometimes people in chat have something. Do you ever bet like sides for first half versus full game if you like something, or is it just kind of
Yeah,
full game or nothing?
so I do. I actually usually go with the side when well, I look at first half versus second half metrics for each team.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually did that a lot in the Horizon League
Nice.
this year. Like
I like the Horizon League.
Yeah, Milwaukee, for example, was a second half team for a good part of the season. So they would always start out slow. So I would, so I would always fade them in the first half. So I do that with certain teams, but I'll do that sometimes if I want action, but the spread's too wide. So I'll take first half.
If you don't want to deal with like free throws and all that fun
Exactly.
stuff down the stretch. Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. Appreciate you hopping on. That was really fun. Did you have fun?
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. Do you have fun chatting it up? And I mean, this is first time on our stream. Have you done any other streams with anyone else in the past?
It's been a while. So no, not since I've really started to like bet consistently, you know what I mean? So yeah, so I've been invited to on a few, but I haven't actually pulled the trigger yet. So but with you I'm like, oh yeah, Ben's awesome. I know we can just like have a conversation because we did that out in Vegas.
So you guys, can you be nice like she is to me, chat? Sometimes chat is a little mean to me. No, chat's actually nice. I'm giving them shit. No, I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate you hopping on. Yeah, for baseball, if you're going to be betting baseball, it would be fun to have you on, especially like from the weather perspective too, and just talking about the wind and some of that, because it's always interesting with baseball. You have these forecasts, of course, like if we're streaming, let's say at 9:30 Mountain Time, 11:30 Eastern in the morning, like we can see these projections that are, 6-8 hours out, right? They're not always going to be accurate.
Right.
And I think that's like a thing that people forget sometimes, right? Like you guys meteorologists, it's a lot of projections, correct? It's just you're trying to be predictive.
Right. And it's yeah, I would love to come on for baseball. I last season was the first season that I bet baseball consistently, like every single day. I bet that it was I didn't even think I would do it the whole season, but I did and I loved it. And I actually did pretty well. But I'm still kind of new, so there's a lot of people that I trust, that I was tailing and stuff. Did a lot of props, did a lot of K props, did a lot of innings pitched props and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And one of the other things about baseball, besides just the wind blowing in and out or, the wind speed, is especially over the summer, when you have a rain delay,
Hmm.
that's kind of hard to gauge. How long is your rain delay going to be? And that's really important, as you know, because if it's long enough, then they're going to switch out the pitchers.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, they can't go back in after 2 hours. Their arms will be all swollen and
right,
crease
exactly.
damage. Yeah.
Exactly, and then that changes the entire dynamic of the game, and then there goes your bet, so
Mm.
it's,
I've never thought about that one before. That's really interesting. Yeah, because I wonder what the threshold is. Like, it's got to be like maybe 2 hours, right? Like after two, they're not going to put them back in.
yeah, I don't know, and I'll punt that over to, somebody with more MLB experience because I don't know what the threshold is. That's a great question,
Yeah.
but I know that I got screwed by that last season. I forgot what game it was,
Pitcher
but it
comes out and you're like, this isn't DeGrom.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it was I forgot what game it was, but they didn't expect the delay to last as long, and then the band of showers kinda slowed down,
Hmm.
so it ended up being like a 3-hour delay, and so they switched them out and they put in I forgot who they put in, but so they lost,
Yeah. Yeah.
they took out their ace and then they put somebody else in and they lost, but you can't change your bet at that point,
Yeah.
and
It's
sometimes they'll
it's
void it
stuck.
or whatever, but
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. I'm gonna write that down and think about that. It's something that I see happen, but I've never really attacked that from a betting angle. So no, that's really good stuff.
yeah, and we can brainstorm throughout the season and I'll let you know what we're working on as far as we're going to be quantifying a lot of the stuff.
Yeah,
Uh
I've been talking to Evan, and he's
mhm.
been doing a lot of stuff, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he cooks up. But I think the thing for me is like finding if we can get accurate weather like before some of the public does. That's what we really need to tap into. I know you guys may have some systems and some softwares that you guys use.
Yeah, we've got our forecast. So and that's why it worked really well with football is because we're able to get these unders. Oh my god, our closing line value was insane this football season because we're
Yeah,
able
with
to
the
take them
wind.
as like a week out or we're able to see what the weather pattern is gonna be, and of course, it doesn't always materialize because, it's weather changes,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
our and I don't know if he showed you, but yeah, it's all tracked in BetStamp. We had a really good return, again, mainly because of how early we were getting these in.
Yeah, and that's the thing with baseball versus football is the lines will come out on a Monday for like football season for like a Saturday game. And if you can get ahead of like what the weather will actually be, you're in a really good spot. Baseball, it's a little more difficult because it's like you have a window of basically 24 hours. So it's like it's not like you're jumping on weather news like that everyone doesn't have access to, but I guess it's about maybe getting it first and how accurate. Like, is it actually going to be a 20 mile per hour wind out, towards the bleachers, right? Is that going to be accurate? I mean, does wind really change that much, like from like an hour to hour basis, or is it pretty? pretty close to what
Yeah, so
it's.
sometimes it does. We saw that in football with, if you've got a 3-4 hour game, you can have it can start out at 20, and then by the end of the game, it can be down to 6, depending on what the nature of the weather moving through is. And so, or it could go the other way around. It could pick up towards the end of the game, and nobody's looking at that, right? Because people are looking at the weather at kickoff.
Mhm.
So that's another edge you can easily find is if the wind at kickoff is because the threshold is about 12 miles per hour for
Yeah, for the wind.
other unders.
Yeah.
So for if the wind is 8 miles an hour at kickoff, but then by the second half it's at 15, 16 miles an hour, nobody's looking at that because when you
Yeah, they
pull up
just look at the one, the pregame number, right?
right, the pregame number at kickoff. So that, yeah, exactly. So that's excellent point. So we try to look at all that stuff and we average it out. And then the other thing about that is you can bet halves,
Mhm.
you can bet quarters, you can bet depending on sometimes there's a crosswind and you have one team going one direction, with the wind, one going against the wind, and then that starts to affect a lot of DFS stuff,
Yeah.
player props and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really good stuff. Yeah, we'll definitely have you on at some point during the baseball season and kind of check in to see how things are going. And yeah, we would love to have you on. I just put your Twitter handle in our chat, so everyone give Ivetta a follow on Twitter. And yeah, the first game has tipped off, so we'll go watch that. I'm gonna raid our friends over at Book It Sports. So if you guys are in chat, go say what up to them in about 10 seconds. But once again, I appreciate it. And yeah, looking forward to watching some of these games and hopefully our bets hit.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you again. This has been a lot of fun. Looking forward to doing it again. And good luck, everybody. Let's finish the season out strong.
Yep, let's do it. All right, guys. We will see you tomorrow. I forget what time. Um, we'll figure it out. But we will be on tomorrow at some point. So turn those notifications on. All right, guys. We'll see you later.